This was my last trip. What's going on? It's someone that's someone, and welcome back to today's report. Today's report is coming from Used to Be Tripper off Earwood. When this happened, 2013. The drug used was 25C-NBOMe at a dose of 3 milligrams. The route of administration, insufflation. Gender, male. Weight, 250 pounds. Age, 31. For his prior experience, highly experienced with psychedelics. For his set, he was looking to celebrate with his wife for their upcoming wedding, and the setting, at home, then the hospital. Okay, so today, we're introducing the substance 25C-NBOMe, a psychedelic research chemical. We've covered the popular 25I-NBOMe, and some of you may not know it, but there's an entire NBOMe chemical group. 25I just happens to be the most popular. Nobody really knows if they got 25I when they get fake acid. It very well could be another NBOMe, like 25C, or others like 25D, 25B, and so on. So, we actually did introduce this chemical within a really unique combination on our Patreon, where a group took 25C, along with 25D, the infamous 25I, and of course some alcohol. Pretty wild report. I highly recommend you check it out. But here we are to get an idea of what 25C can be like on its own. This report today is of an accidental overdose. Apparently this user took 25I in similar and higher doses and came out fine. But he took this prior experience with 25I and applied it to 25C, which the 25C did not hold back. You'll just see. And I do want to know that this couple was taken to the hospital, and he does mention that he does hear an officer mention benzodiazepines, which is commonly considered a trip killer. Because they were treated, it is likely that this, or at the very least, something else was administered to them during this experience. But there is no explicit mention, so we'll be treating this experience as 25C alone. But other than that, we'll break 25C down more after the report and get an idea of what it is. So I'm sure you'll enjoy this. Without further ado, let's dive right into this. Let me start off by saying that I have tripped more than most can imagine. LSD 80 times, shrooms 20 plus times, 4-ACO-DMT roughly 15 times, 2CE roughly 25 times, and also 25I-NBOMe roughly 12 times. My fiance and I at the time, which was less than 2 weeks ago, she's now my wife, got the 25C-NBOMe to celebrate getting married. She's only done shrooms and LSD. We took this substance 4 days before our wedding. So, here's the horror story. Now take into account, I am admitting we were dumbasses, but I hope people take from this. At around 3:30 p.m., we both snorted roughly 3 milligrams each. I get up to go get dishes done, so the house is nice and clean for our trip. She says, I'm going to get on the PC and see how long it takes to kick in. She opens the laptop. I look at her from the kitchen, and she closes it right back up. I ask, why didn't you look it up? She says, I'm already tripping. I say, no way, mine hasn't kicked in. 2 minutes later, it kicks in. It is now 3:37, and it is hitting hard. We walk out to the backyard, and the visuals are so strong, it's becoming hard to see her face from 5 feet away. I hear her say she is scared, and if she will be okay. I say yes, and try to smile at her. But my breathing is becoming more difficult, and I am also scared, but don't want her to know. It's now 3:40, and I help her off the steps to walk back in and sit on the couch. She sits down and asks again if she will be okay. I say, would you like me to call an ambulance? She's now so out of it, she doesn't really respond. 3:43 p.m., I grab my phone, call 911, ask for an ambulance, and tell them me and my fiance had ingested a chemical called 25C-NBOMe and it was becoming harder to breathe. 3:48, 5 cops come into my home and ask what's wrong. I try to explain to them we are hallucinating and having trouble breathing, and show them the package on the table, along with some 25C sitting there that we didn't snort. They have a hard time understanding what is going on, as they have never heard of it. My fiance starts screaming at them to get her to the hospital. They tell her the ambulance is on the way. Not sure of the time now, but it hasn't been long. 2 paramedics walk in. Can't remember what they said. Next thing I remember is my fiance is on a stretcher and I'm walking towards the ambulance. They had me step up on it and sit on the chair behind her on the stretcher. They put IVs into us both. and start asking what we see. I try to say things are swirling, and my fiance just keeps screaming to get her to the hospital. I have my head down with my eyes closed because I am terrified at this point. I hear them say to my fiance, "You better wake up now, or we're putting a breathing tube down your throat." I look up and scream at her, "I love you!" And she comes back, still screaming, why isn't she at the hospital? While we're on the ambulance, I hear a cop calling someone, asking about 25C, and he says they recommend benzos to counteract. We get to the hospital, and they take her off to a room and walk me to a separate room. They hook me up to a lot of wires, and I'm terrified. A cop walks in and says they're not pressing charges. I say, "Great, that's good to know." I have a guy who's my nurse talking to me as he checks my wires and stuff, and I ask, "Is my fiance alive?" He says yes. I ask, "Are we going to live?" He says, "Both your heart rates were over 200, but we have them going down now." Hours go along. I miss my fiance. After 7 hours, both our vital signs are back to normal, and they release her about 20 minutes before me. She had called her sister a couple hours earlier to have company. They release us both, and her sister drives us home. We are lucky to be alive. I did up to 8 milligrams of 25I-NBOMe, and with 3 milligrams of 25C-NBOMe, me and my wife almost died. I will not trip again. Be safe if you do. Okay, well that was a hot mess, but thankfully these two made it out okay. So let's talk about 25C-NBOMe. This is a phenethylamine. If you don't know, all NBOMes are considered to be, and it is a derivative of 2CC. And you may guess that 25I is a derivative of 2CI, 25B a derivative of 2CB, and so on. It was first synthesized back in 2003 by Ralph Heim in Germany, who also synthesized 25I and some others. There are a couple changes to the chemical structure of 2CC that make 25C, and these changes also change its potency to be 16 times stronger. But even with this, it isn't considered to be as potent as LSD. But regardless, that doesn't mean it can't be a dangerous substance. When we get down to the microgram range, even the low milligram range, it's considered to be risky business. Eyeballing micrograms is pretty much impossible, even milligrams. But what makes an NBOMe so dangerous? Well, NBOMe still provides a trip, but because it's a stronger agonist of serotonin receptors, this allows for a much larger variety of effects to pop up. We see something similar when it comes to spice and cannabis. Synthetic cannabinoids are often full agonist, while cannabis is only partial, and in result, we see the potential for harm and even death to happen with the stronger agonist. NBOMes can more notably give users a rough trip. This is most likely due to mindset and also the other side effects. But the negative physical effects that can pop up can include heavy vasoconstriction, cardiotoxicity, difficulty urinating, headaches, jaw clenching, muscle aches, numbing, increased blood pressure, and more. And some of these could be mentally influenced by the trip, but NBOMe has shown to have a direct physical impact. There are many studies that demonstrate that it is also likely neurotoxic, possibly even more so than meth. Death has been reported before with NBOMes, and part of the reason for this is the dosing, a crucial misjudgment in today's experience. It is uncommon for people to take milligrams of an NBOMe, but it is reported, and some show to have little to no side effects, which for some this may be ideal. That kind of dosing could allow for some kind of eyeballing to take place, but it is still risky business. Reported deaths where insufflation takes place is somewhat common, as it's unlikely accurate dosing is taking place. This kind of carelessness led these two to the rough trip they had to go through, which I really feel bad for his wife, having only done LSD and shrooms ever, and then being put on a superdose of 25C-NBOMe, which was potentially life-threatening. And strong dosing sometimes can come from tabs too, considering how liquid is dropped and concentrated, but an overdose like this is much less likely to happen. But even with these risks, we see that there is some out there that do seek to explore this chemical and other NBOMes, which a lot of these adverse effects can be better avoided with proper dosing and preparation. But compared to other NBOMes, it can be somewhat difficult to accurately depict the differences given the limited data out there. But based on subjective reports, 25C may be potentially less physically taxing compared to 25I, thus less stimulating. Some claim that 25I is more visually active compared to 25C. Some say there's little difference at all. Then some say that each NBOMe has its own character. But of course, this will all depend on the user, the dosage, and the setting. It is common though for NBOMe trips to not have much introspection or feelings of spiritual unity. Compared to more traditional psychs, the headspace in general may be somewhat underwhelming or lacking in a sense. This isn't to say you aren't tripping, but it may feel less like the full package and more like a recreational experience. But again, each trip will differ. NBOMes somewhat have their own style of visuals too. I would say it's almost a mimic of what you get on traditional psychs. But this doesn't mean they can't be very prominent and strong. Another key trait about NBOMes is their taste and that they can be numbing. This is a key indicator to look out for when taking LSD. If you get that metallic taste and numb feeling in your mouth, then you most likely stumbled upon an NBOMe. But I think we'll end it there for today. We went into what 25C is and how it can act, and how clearly this substance shouldn't be taken lightly. These two in today's report ended up being lucky. Like I said, there's been many overdoses reported with 25C, but it can act as a psychedelic and give a trip. But with like any substance, it deserves proper caution and respect. So if you did enjoy this report on 25C-NBOMe, want to see more on this or other NBOMes or any substance at all, let me know in the comments below and we'll do that. If you have your own report you want to see, send it into NoOneSubmitReport@gmail.com. If you want to see exclusive reports not on the channel, follow my Patreon, link below. And if you can, like the video, subscribe if you haven't already, follow the socials, share the video. It's been someone that's no one, and I'll see you guys next time. Peace out.